Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. Today I have a P3 student from VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, who is Miranda Moore. She is working with Project CHANCE, which is a little bit unique to VCU and part of HPHA. She's interested in kind of discovering what she wants to do, although she's shown an interest in ambulatory care, also possibly nuclear pharmacy, possibly a residency. And I think what she's going to be able to do for us is really help us understand as a P3, early P3, how do you make your decisions about your P4 year? How do you balance both discovery and making sure that you get enough experience in the places that you want? And then how do you pick a pharmacy school in the first place when you live in a state and you have a couple of options? So Miranda, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you picked your school? I went to Maryland because it was in-state. It was the only school that was available, and I decided if I didn't get in, I would just try again the next year. So that was my plan. What was your plan when you were coming out of school?
Yeah, so I knew pretty early on since high school that I wanted to go to pharmacy school. So I had some time to go and visit the pharmacy schools that we have in Virginia. Mainly the two that I was focused on was Shenandoah University in Winchester and Virginia Commonwealth University, or MCV, the medical campus of Virginia in Richmond. And when I went to undergrad at James Madison University, and I majored in chemistry, and we had a chemistry advisor, Dr. Amenta, who was wonderful and really encouraged me and all of the pre-pharmacy students to get a good look at both campuses. And for me, I was just really drawn to the city of Richmond and wanted to be here and spend my graduate years here and learning from the staff and faculty that they had. So that's why I chose MCV.
Okay, well, you would have had a lot of choices in Virginia. I tried to go to UVA. My uncle went to JMU, and I went to JMU to get my level 1 track certification to coach at the college level. Tell us a little bit about JMU and kind of how you picked that undergrad, and then maybe a little bit more about why you chose to stay in-state maybe versus out-of-state. But it sounds like you were a good student. You were taking chemistry, so you could have gotten into most pharmacy schools in the area. But what made you pick JMU, and then what made you, kind of focus on Richmond?
So I'm originally from Winchester, and I'm pretty close to my family. I wanted to get out of my hometown to get a little bit of independence in that aspect, and JMU was about an hour from my hometown, so I had the option. My parents would come and take me out to breakfast some mornings and then be gone.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, it was really nice having that support system so nearby that I knew that they could be there for me if I needed them, but also have some space. I visited the campus. I had some family that had gone there in the past, so I knew it was going to be a really good environment. And everything about JMU is just wonderful and inviting. So anyone who's been there knows someone from there, has nothing but positive things to say.
Okay. Yeah, you went a lot further than me. I went a half an hour away to College Park, and my parents would sometimes drop off a rent check, and it would just kind of come in the window, kind of fly down like one of the envelopes in Harry Potter, and it was just kind of amazing. But to have that closeness, and then I moved to Baltimore, which was 45 minutes away. So we may have followed kind of the same track. But how do you keep in touch with your parents or family in Richmond? It seems like that's a little bit farther away.
With technology, it's pretty simple. We're just pretty close we call all the time, and it's, I grew up in Winchester, but both my main family, my extended family, is in Pennsylvania. So we were used my whole life driving 3 to 4 hours to visit family. So that distance from Richmond to my hometown is really not anything that we're not used to driving.
Okay. Well, it sounds like when I talked to you a little bit before the interview, sometimes you have a plan for exactly what you're going to do in pharmacy school. Many pharmacy students have the rest of their life planned out on an Excel spreadsheet. Then you go to pharmacy school and find a passion for something maybe a little different. So tell me a little bit about how your journey has kind of gone as you went into pharmacy school and then how you've gotten involved with Project Chance.
Yeah. So I started at JMU. We had an alumni, Dr. Igaziala, come down and talk about nuclear pharmacy. And I had been taking a nuclear chemistry elective at the time, and just to this day think that nuclear pharmacy is so interesting and it's so unique. And a lot of people don't really think about that. So when I started at MCV, VCU School of Pharmacy, I was 100% going to be a nuclear pharmacist. After my P1 year, I started to get involved with APHA a little bit more seriously with some of their projects. I would volunteer more, and that's where I found Project Chance. And we would start volunteering at Hip Hop, which is Health Initiatives by Student Professionals for Homeless Persons, and STEAMM, which is Student Professionals Educating about Medication Management. So it was both of those opportunities were amazing to allow students to really interact with homeless populations and individuals that I had never really seriously considered myself working with. So through those opportunities and through those experiences, I've really found that working with those populations that have a little bit more trouble finding access to healthcare has been really rewarding as a student.
Tell me a little bit about how what you actually do on a day-to-day basis, or what can you do? I know many students want to get clinical experience, and when I was in residency, we actually got to work with one of the free clinics up in Cedar Rapids in Iowa. And while it was kind of nice not to ever have to deal with insurance, and everything was, there wasn't even cash to deal with. It was kind of nice, but there was a very appreciative group. And on the one hand, it was we could actually do quite a bit that maybe we couldn't do if we were, in something a little more formal. And then, well, let's start with that part. Tell me a little bit about what you actually do on a day-to-day basis yourself and then your group.
Yeah, so for myself, when preparing for these projects as the chair for it, we start by looking at, these are monthly events. We look at a monthly health topic, a national health observance. So for November, we did smoking cessation. January, we just did a jump start for healthy habits for the new year. In February, we're going to do heart health awareness. So we look at those national health observances. I create posters, and we prepare certain things like that just to make sure that we have material ready to talk about these health observances. And then when we get there, we have a team of student volunteers. The sign up goes out to the whole school. Everyone is invited and eligible to attend. We do have a maximum quantity of students. And then it starts. I begin with a brief 10 to 15 minute talk on that health observance. And then the students get the opportunity to do medical screenings. Specifically at Hip Hop, we'll do blood pressure, BMI. Sometimes we'll be able to do blood glucose in patients that have an indication for those tests. And it gives students the opportunity to work with individuals who really value that connection with a healthcare professional. And they're very interested and eager to learn and speak to students. It's a really great opportunity to practice your skills and specifically communication with patients. We learn a lot in school about how you take this value, how you take blood pressure. But the practice with working one-on-one with patients, specifically in homeless populations, there's some practice that you need for that when you get out into your clinical experience. So having these opportunities in school has been really valuable.
One thing that I remember is that sometimes with the homeless population, it's very difficult for them to come back a second time, or a lot of times, I want to say it was about 50% of the time, they wouldn't make it back. But when they had somebody that they got to see on a regular basis, or they had that kind of support, that number tended to go up quite a bit. Can you tell me a little bit about the impact that your group has had on them? Or do you have any specific stories? Don't name any names, but do you have any specific stories that you could share that maybe you're kind of seeing the impact before you even get to clinicals in your fourth year?
Yes. Specifically for one of our events, Hip Hop is at a substance abuse recovery center. So it's men who are recovering from addictions. So I would go every month, and we would do these talks. We would do the blood pressure. We would talk. We would laugh and counsel on, oh, you're a little bit high. Maybe decrease your caffeine. Just casual conversations on health. And then after about 3 months of me going, you would start recognizing people that would come back, and they would recognize you, and you would build that rapport. And we were doing a mental health talk that month. And I was walking around handing out the pamphlets or the surveys just to go through with the men staying there. And I had one gentleman who kind of took the paper from me, and he got to talking, and he told me that he didn't feel comfortable telling his normal person who came in, because that individual changed monthly for them. So they would have blood pressure screenings in addition to my group going. And he pulled me aside and he said, I recognize you. You were here last month. You were great. You were kind to me. And I want to talk to you about my mental health because I trust you. And it's situations like that as a student that you really feel that you feel the impact of the profession that we have. You feel the impact of pharmacy in those communities, knowing that you're able to help someone because they know you and they respect you and they recognize you as a face that they can trust.
So this puts you at a bit of a decision point. So in October-ish, at least somewhere around there in your P3 year, you have to make the decision for your APPEs the following year. Nuclear pharmacy, I would expect that you would have very little patient contact, or maybe you'd work with a team, but that would be certainly a very different experience. And this is more ambulatory care, serving a very needed population, something we're, again, trying to get provider status for so that we can serve the underserved. How do you set up your rotation so that you can still have both options open as you're going into your fourth year?
Right. So it's a challenging decision to make, the ranking system for your rotations. It can cause a lot of stress. What I did is I really I didn't limit myself to picking one career choice. I said, I'm interested in this and in ambulatory and in nuclear. And I really liked my psychology module that we took in class. So I designed my rotation schedule to give myself a nuclear rotation. That's in Salem, Virginia. And I have an ambulatory care elective with Dr. Kelly Good, who is my preceptor for my Project CHANCE at APHA. And I have a acute care 1 elective with a preceptor who specializes in psychology. So I've really made sure that my rotations are set up so that early on in my fourth year, I'll have all of my key interest rotations done. So I'll have some time to really think about where I can see myself as a career long-term.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, tell me a little bit about how each road would turn out if it went the way it was supposed to, if you want to call it that. So how does someone become a nuclear pharmacist?
Right. So nuclear pharmacy is pretty unique. They're spaced out all over the country. There's no residency program required for that. So you would just find a job, which is a challenge in itself.
I'm a nuclear pharmacist. It's done.
No, but you would get hired by a nuclear pharmacy, and then you would have some experiential time where you would be working and have some training, and then you would sit for a board and get certified. And that's how nuclear would work out. It's challenging in itself. It's a unique field, so there's some learning and unique situations that arise with it, but for nuclear, that's the road.
Okay. And then, so you're talking a little bit about ambulatory. So does this lead to, I guess there's a number of roads, community residency, or does it lead to an ambulatory specific residency, or does it go to PGY1, then something different? How does your ambulatory road go, or how would the ambulatory road go if everything went as planned?
Well, for ambulatory, that's the great thing about ambulatory. You can really take it whichever route you want. So if that PGY1 residency is really drawn to me and it's something that I feel that would really connect with me, I listened to the residency preparedness podcast that you guys did, and I thought, it had some really good advice in there about really just making sure that you stay well-rounded and you find programs that you feel connected to, not just with your academics and your CV building, but you feel like your personalities would mesh with the people who are running it. So community pharmacy, I work in a Walgreens currently, so doing that route with ambulatory care. I can see myself working in a hospital with that, in a clinic. So there's just a lot of routes. I'm trying to keep my options open in that regard because it is something that you can take so many different ways.
Okay. Well, you seem to be making quite a few connections, certainly in the local area, and then with your APPEs. But tell me a little bit about going to the national meeting. What will VCU be doing? What will you be doing as you're in Seattle?
So we have a good group of people going to represent VCU School of Pharmacy from us to the national meeting in Seattle. I will be presenting on my work that I've done through Project CHANCE, specifically with STEAMM, which is the student professionals educating about medication management. Well, I'll be presenting on the medication-related problems that we've found, and just to point out that because this is a unique patient care project to VCU, just making sure people are aware of the impact that students can have with homeless populations. We have several students that are going to go and speak and talk about the certain research projects that they're working on, and just making connections and learning from the profession who is gathered there. It's going to be really exciting. We're all really happy to be going.
Okay. And then tell me a little bit about what I would say many go, some don't, for various reasons, but do you expect to go to ASHP Midyear next year, or is that a decision you'll make after you've kind of had a couple of APPEs under your belt?
I'm pretty, the general consensus from the P3 class that I've talked to at VCU is that the majority of us plan on attending Midyear.
Okay. And I think it's in Anaheim or Las Vegas. I can't remember.
I believe it's Vegas.
Vegas. Okay. Vegas, baby. All right. Yeah. So, yeah, I double checked. Okay. It's Vegas. So it was Anaheim this year, yeah. Las Vegas next year. So actually, that's a really good thing. It's one of the least expensive places to go if you talk about a conference, just in terms of staying there and those types of things. So that'll be good for the students. Well, yeah. I've talked about a lot of things. I've asked you a lot of questions. Any first shout outs you want to throw out to any of your peers or friends out there? And then any questions that I maybe haven't asked you that you feel is important to kind of tell maybe the pharmacy students that are coming behind you that could really learn from you?
Yeah, of course. I would love to give a shout out to Dr. Gatewood, Dr. Matulowicz, and Dr. Good at VCU. They have been a huge help to our chapter at VCU School of Pharmacy, APHA. Their guidance has really led so many of my classmates and myself onto our specific research projects. They're always available, even though they have their own very important patients that they have to help to the best of their ability. They help their students so well. So we're so thankful to have them. For new students coming up and for P1s and P2s, the biggest thing that I would say is, because I was so set on nuclear pharmacy when I first came, I would definitely get involved. Your APHA chapter has so many opportunities to get out into the community and figure out what you're interested in and find new things that you're interested in. And Project CHANCE has become such a huge part of my pharmacy school experience, and it's been something that I've been so passionate about that I would definitely encourage everyone to get involved, but find things that you're passionate about to get involved with. And so it'll be easier to balance that studying and working and getting involved in your community if you do have a serious passion about it.
Okay, and then final question. So VCU had Shaka Smart, right? And he left you guys for Texas. They made a Final Four run or Sweet 16 run. How's VCU's basketball team doing?
VCU basketball is always good.
Okay, we just want to make.
We love it.
Okay, because it gets APHA gets a little bit crazy. It's March Madness, and all the schools tend to show their colors and things like that. So it's a lot of fun. All right. Yeah. Well, Miranda, I certainly appreciate you being on the Pharmacy Leaders podcast.
Thank you so much again for having me.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.